Hello and welcome to the Dad Whisperer. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Watson, and here on this day before we celebrate Independence Day, it seems only fitting to be talking about freedom in our relationships, especially those between fathers and their children. And today is part one of a two-part conversation that I will be having with a man that I have come to know and love and respect over the course of the last 9 years. I can't believe it's been that long. And his name is Paul Young. Now, you may have seen his book called The Shack, where he says William P. Young, but he goes by Paul. And I am imagining that most of you know him at least by name, so he probably doesn't need any introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. So first off, I just want to say that Paul is my friend, my heart friend, and has had such a profound impact on my life. He's best-selling author of The Shack, which is not only a book, but now a movie. If you haven't seen it, you have got to get out and get the DVD because it's coming out later this month. Woohoo! And I guarantee you will love it. And you will see the Trinity in new ways. He's also written Crossroads, Eve, and most recently, Lies We Believe About God. He's a husband and a father to 6 adult children, 4 boys and 2 girls. So he has 2 daughters-in-law, a son-in-law, and 9 grandkids, and 1 on the way. And Paul has described his life journey, listen to this, as both incredible and unbearable, a desperate grasping after grace and wholeness. Listen to that again, both incredible and unbearable, a desperate grasping after grace and wholeness. And today we're going to unpack a little bit of his story, especially in relationship to how he has been fathered and how he has fathered his daughters in particular. One last thing I want to say before we begin this discussion is that Paul has a special gift, and it's to give hugs. And I describe his hugs, for me, literally they have been healing, and they're long, and they're safe, and they're good, and they're holy. And I've never known anyone to give holy hugs other than this man. So without further ado, Paul, welcome.
So good to be with you, Michelle. Thank you.
Oh, it's such a joy. Well, I always do On Your Mark, Get Set, Go. So you and I are coaching fathers today that stand side by side on their fathering journey, ready to run the race this week anew. And the title today, On Your Mark, is From Bondage to Freedom, The Path to Healing Father Wounds. So, Paul, I would love to just go back in time and have you talk about the foundation that was laid in your life in relation to your father. What has your relationship with your father been like?
One of the great advantages that I have is that my father's oldest sibling, who is about to turn 96, she's a historian. And so she has documented the family history going back a few generations, which gives me a really great perspective of the brokenness of my own dad now. Because when you're a child, the perception is that your parents are as close to deity as anybody.
Exactly.
And so a lot of times what they present as the character and nature of God is right implicit inside their own behaviors and the ways that they relate to you. Mm-hmm. So for a lot of us who had broken relationships with our fathers, we end up with a very broken relationship with God. And this was the case. My dad he was orphaned when he was 12. At 18, at 14, he was working in the logging camps in British Columbia and had a massive encounter with Jesus at 18, walked right out and into Bible school where he meets my mom.
Yeah.
They get married. And he takes a little church up in the Peace River country up in northern Alberta. And that's where I'm born, Grand Prairie, Alberta. And then a year, 10 months later, we pack everything up and we move to the highlands of New Guinea, where my parents are pioneer missionaries. Uh-huh. So my dad did not have the chip for being a dad.
Yeah.
That was busted in him by his dad and his own experience. And we can go back in the history and say, I know my grandfather was a very damaged human being. And I know my great-grandfather was before him. So there is a legacy here of brokenness that extends way back. So when I talk about my own great sadnesses, which really undergird the imagery in the shack, one of them is my relationship with my dad. Yeah. He was a terrifying man to be anywhere near. He was built for pioneer missions. We were in a very, in retrospect, a very dangerous place. My parents were in their 20s, and they're in the middle of Stone Age, ritualistic, cannibalistic,
Oh, my goodness.
warring tribal people who had
Wow.
never seen a white person before.
Huh.
And that's the world that I grew up with as normal. And there were great, wonderful things that were part of growing up that way. But my relationship with my dad was a centerpiece of instability. That is, I never knew from one moment to the next when some mine would go off that I happened to step on. And I describe it as living in a house where they changed the mines every night and you just didn't know. But I didn't grow up with him either. He was doing the mission work. He was away. He was not engaged as a father at all. And when he was furious a lot.
So a lot of absence. And then when you were together, you never knew in the landmine you'd step on it and it would blow.
Correct. So, and coupled with other things that were going on in my childhood, my relationship with my dad was just incredibly difficult. And he didn't know how to be a father. He just didn't. He didn't have the capacity, nor the background, nor the experience, nor the exposure to it.
Yeah.
And even though he did some really fantastic things in terms of what he was able to do, good things in the culture and in people's lives over the years, his and my relationship has been a huge struggle.
And one of the things in your most recent book, Lies We Believe About God, you write that your father was disappointed in you, and then there are these dashes, and then you said all the time.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's many men listening today that say, that's my story.
Yeah.
I so appreciate that you said that's what you felt as a child and believed. And you said whether or not your dad was disappointed with you, you don't really know because you haven't had that conversation yet.
Right.
And I wonder.
And my dad is 87 now
87.
and still alive.
You think you'll ever have the conversation?
I don't know. There's been some things that have been shifting a bit. But, over the course of your life, you tend to pile up stuff in the basement of your own house in the inside. And I think that it may be true that my dad has piled up so much stuff that he's too terrified to open that door.
Yeah.
And because, you open it a crack and everything's going to come out.
Exactly.
And that's, I don't know if that's too much on this side of the veil.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So how has your dad's disappointment in you shaped you?
Oh, my goodness.
Because we've talked about the anger and the absence.
Yeah.
What about the disappointment?
And that becomes a really strong characteristic about how we see God's relationship as Father toward us.
Yeah.
And everything then becomes about what is the set of expectations that I need to meet so that you're not.
Right.
Right? But it's always temporary too, because it's only as good as our perfect behavior. And so we're always standing on the precipice of an abyss where it's like, and after a while, I think a bunch of guys, they just kind of quit.
Yeah.
Like,
quit trying.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
And if relationship with God is about performance, then the broken of us, we don't have a chance. I mean, it's just a matter of time before all of our faking as we see it gets discovered and we're outed again,
Right. Exactly.
So when my dad he was an abusive disciplinarian. And when he would come in at me, I ended up having only 3 words that I tried to use for a defense, and I think I wrote about it, and that is, I'll be good. That's what I would scream at him over and over and over. I'll be good, I'll be good, I'll be good. And because obviously he's furious. Obviously I'm in the wrong, even if I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And therefore, give me another chance.
Yeah.
And as a hope to stop the discipline.
I'm so moved to tears. I mean, just picturing a little boy going, I'll be good.
Well, that's where we get stuck.
Yeah.
And then the rest of our lives, it's like, so what do you want me to be?
Right.
And let me try and I'll be good. But here's the agreement that you're making in your own heart. I'm bad.
Exactly.
I'm bad. Every time you yell that, you're declaring, okay, I'm bad right now, but you just tell me what your set of expectations are and I'll be good. And you can see how that easily transforms over to your theology and into your relationship with God. So Plus, we had a very dismantling theology that God the Father was an abusive disciplinarian of Jesus, right? And that's what we were taught, that, this is a God who abandons, this is a God who turns away, can't look on sin. His son, yes, he does it for us, but he becomes so horrific that God, who is good, can't look on his son who has become us.
Yeah.
Right? What does that state about the fundamental truth of our being? It states that we're worthless, we're depraved, we're just garbage.
Exactly.
Right? And so once that assumption is made, we've got no way to climb out of this hole.
Yeah,
None at all. Yeah.
So even talking more, Paul, about your dad, there's three boys in your family, one girl growing up. What did you watch about your dad's you're the oldest, about how he related to your sister, perhaps different than you? Because you think about that model.
And that's a great question, because and what it does, it gives us a picture of how you can put 10 children in front of the same abuse and 10 lives will go 10 totally different directions. We are so uniquely crafted that what we're exposed to is processed uniquely and becomes our hurt.
Yeah, all in the same family.
Yep. So you could have 4 children, like in our family, who could write their histories, and you'd have 4 different histories. As the oldest, I experienced the front end of this stuff.
Yeah.
Debbie was the second born, and my sister experienced it incredibly differently. And this didn't really come to light until a few years ago. One of the things that she did not like when we were in high school was that she was Paul's sister, right? That she was sort of in the background.
Yeah. And
so I, over the years, have tried not to let her be lost in the wake of the stuff that's happened around me. And Anna, we were at a conference, and at one point she comes to me and she's in tears and she says, "I'm invisible to you." And I'm going like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "You won't even acknowledge me in any public sense." Well, here I am trying to not acknowledge her so that she doesn't get lost in my wake, right? And this tapped into something that went all the way back to our childhood.
Yeah.
Here's what she said as we talked about it. She said, I've come to realize that she said, I saw what Dad did to you. And I saw what he did to our other brother. The youngest, Stephen, was so young that he didn't catch the brunt of that. She said, I saw what Dad did to you, but he never touched me. I wasn't even worth touching. So she saw that at least when he hits you, he's at least touching you.
Wow.
I'm just invisible. Right? So again, you have a child who processes completely different inside the same kind of system, family system. Right.
And were you ever aware that she was invisible in the family system? You wouldn't have been.
No, I wasn't aware of it simply because I'm trying to survive. Exactly. And she was too. So this is, becomes one of her coping mechanisms. Yeah. She becomes sort of the savior caregiver. I just leave, which, that's a horrible thing, really, because I sort of abandoned my siblings, by getting out of there when I was 16. And it was a survival mechanism. Anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, you have all these things in your history that are related to, in this case, directly related to my relationship with my dad.
Yeah.
That then becomes an impediment in your own heart for the possibility of relationships in general and your relationship with God specifically.
Exactly. So then, like, coming forward then to when you became a father, or 6 children, are you kidding me? I mean, like, you're saying, okay, my dad didn't have a clue how to be a dad.
Yeah.
You're now, with your history, thrown into being a father to 6.
I was
talking specifically even about your daughters. How did you then not repeat what you had been taught and experienced?
One is that, one of the values of rebelling against your own history is that it opens up the possibility of a different story. And it's a backhanded sort of grace. But I did not want to be like my dad. I didn't want to be identified with my dad. And that had happened in all kinds of realms, not just relationally, but theologically and everything else. So, I mean, it's a whole journey. And then we start having children. I don't have the capacity to love. Not really. But the children are able to penetrate into the places where your guard has been so strong and unknown. And yet they slip by like a beautiful piece of music or like a rainstorm,
Did your daughters touch your heart differently than your sons, or was it the same?
Well, we had 3 boys in a row.
Uh-huh.
And then when Amy was born, it was like a whole new world. And so, yeah, but every one of my children touched me differently.
Uh-huh.
And
not just based on gender.
No.
Just on the personality
yes.
of the person.
Yeah, that's what I think is a surprise for a lot of us. When we have our first child, when we don't have a child yet, your focus is on the other, or it should be in a sense. And then your first child comes along and it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't know I had the capacity for this.
Exactly.
And then when when Kim was pregnant with the second, with Nicholas, it was like, how can I love another human being? I've used it all up.
Oh,
but the truth is that child brings this whole new world and capacity that with them, right?
I love that.
Yeah, and then as they grow and form, the knowing becomes the basis for the relationship.
Yeah.
But every one of the children there's a uniqueness about the relationship that has not existed before.
Did anger ever become a way that you were as a dad, or I've not heard you ever talk about that?
Yeah, no. So I wasn't really angry till I was 38, and I say that in a backhanded sort of way because anger is a very focused emotion, right? And I had buried it so long because only when I was growing up, only the righteous man was allowed to be angry. Like the righteous God.
Right.
So my anger did not come until I started to deal with my stuff. It was there. And when you have a focused emotion like anger and you bury it, it becomes an unfocused emotion, like irritability.
Yeah.
And
it oozes out.
Yeah. I mean, the poison's there. They don't disappear.
Yeah.
They go somewhere. And so they turn to unfocused emotion, depression, irritability, sarcasm that's hurtful, all of those kinds of things. So yes, I was angry, and
did that affect parenting?
It did, and the counterbalance for that, in my experience, were 2 things. Kim, who's a very powerful mother, right, and so she had a great sixth sense for where I was stepping over issues and boundaries that I wasn't even aware of.
Yeah.
Because, you act out of your history. You don't, as much as you want to deny it, we live from the past, and that past is, you have to face it at some point. And the other counterbalance was Kim's dad lived with us, and Willard. And Willard lived with us for 17 years. Wow. So my children were raised in a multi-generational household in which the grandfather was a very safe man for them and had a profound impact on them. So
and
much so
you?
that, so much, for me, because he modeled an entirely different kind of fatherly response than I was used to.
Yeah.
And the impact was so significant that, my kids would tell you that the 3 people that have the greatest impact in their whole lives were their mother, father, and grandfather, but not necessarily in that order. And so when I wrote The Shack, I wrote the character of Kim's dad, Willard, into it because we all called him Willie. So when you read The Shack, Willie is Kim's father.
Oh, I love that.
And we were at the premiere, and Amy was with me, went to the premiere in New York, and got in a conversation with Tim McGraw, who plays Willie in the movie. And Amy says, "Do you understand who Willie is to me?" And he said, "No." And so she starts to tell him, and he starts to cry because it is so significant.
Oh, my goodness.
And so that's one of the great gifts in my history. Willie, by the way, Tim says, "I'm so glad I didn't know when I was playing the role." So
wow.
But yes, so our histories
absolutely. So I would love to hear how you have worked through some of the process of forgiveness and healing of the father wounds, whether they were absence or harmful things to you with your dad.
slowly and incrementally has been the process. I tell people, I think we'd all like extreme soul makeover, give me a red or blue pill and send me to Disney World and fix me by the time I get back. But we're too incredibly crafted and too uniquely broken for quick fixes. Yeah. And this is a God who's got he's got the long game in mind, and that's to heal us in a way that doesn't damage us even more. And so it takes our participation. I don't think God heals us apart from our participation. So you look back, every journey toward wholeness is a unique one in every single human being. And mine had to do with so many elements. It had to do with the exposure of all the brokenness in my heart. And I think exposure is a gift. It's a severe mercy. And
exposure meaning
that all the stuff, all the brokenness, all the addictions, all the lies, all the secrets, everything that I had buried inside my shack, the house on the inside, that my father helped to build, all of that had to come to the surface and be faced and dealt with. And unfortunately, I wasn't wise enough to volunteer that process. I didn't go get the help. I was caught and exposed that way, which is terrifying, but absolutely necessary if we're going to come to healing.
Yeah.
And that started a huge journey of trying to get from the brokenness to some sense of wholeness, and it required therapy. In terms of my relationship with my dad, it's been an ongoing journey, and the issue of forgiveness. That has been a much easier journey than the issue of reconciliation. And that has become a very significant point for me, is that a lot of times I think we as Christians especially, because that's my world, I think we confuse forgiveness and reconciliation and get ourselves into huge amounts of trouble.
I agree.
We don't establish good boundaries because we think that when we forgive someone, we're supposed to be able to trust them. Like trusting them is the evidence that you've forgiven them. And it's not. That's part of reconciliation. And forgiveness is a conversation between me and God about someone. And it is a process. And over the years, my forgiveness for my father feels pretty complete. And but when I wrote The Shack, and I wrote chapter 15, Festival of Friends, where there's a reconnecting with the Father and the Son.
Yeah.
I didn't write that because it had happened. I wrote that because it was a hope. And even since then, some things have happened that have sort of bridged that. But forgiveness, conversation between me and God about somebody else. And that's why for forgiveness, you don't need a face. Right? But for reconciliation, you need a face, because it is a face-to-face reestablishing over time of trust. That is a whole nother thing.
Yes.
And we're still working on that side of things.
If I was to just wrap this up, Paul, I mean, I could talk to you the whole day. If I was to ask you to give one go step on your mark, get set, go, one way that men or women listening today could begin to start that process of healing father wounds, what would you as a dad heart, you got a father heart, as a dad to those listening that may not have had a dad that dialed into their heart space, how would you tell them to begin that process?
You've got to validate your own story enough to tell it. I think that's really, really at the core. A lot of us, we just want to package up our history and stuff it into some trunk in the attic somewhere and then try to ignore it, without realizing that is part of the sound that we make today and the broken sounds that we make today. So at some point, you have to take the risk of trusting God with skin on, somebody, and tell your story. And that means your story has to matter to you enough to tell it. You can't do this alone. We're not designed to do this alone. We're not made in the image of a God who's ever been alone. And so this becomes a real point of exposure in the right sense. And so you got to tell your story.
Oh, Paul, it has been such a joy to have you here today.
So great to be with you, Michelle.
Truly. So for those of you listening, this has been a conversation with my friend Paul Young. His new book, Lies That We Believe About God. You got to get that book. And as we've talked today about unpacking your story, moving toward healing with your father wounds, you may want to re-listen to this because it was so packed with beautiful, practical tools. And dads, get out there, look at your stuff, tell your story so that you can be the dad you want to be to your daughters and sons. So thanks, Paul, again. It's been great to have you here.
Good to be with you.